Hello garden friends, I'm in the shade garden and today I thought I would take you on a quick walkthrough of the shade garden, the kitchen view garden, and the barn slope garden behind me. I've been doing a lot of work in these areas, mainly the kitchen view and the barn slope, not so much in the shade, but there's lots I want to show you. New plantings, a new extension of the barn slope garden bed that we just finished. And that's the main reason I haven't really shown you anything yet, or recently. I think my last video in this area was probably a good month and a half, maybe 2 months ago. So we've been working a lot on finishing the end of the barn slope garden bed and getting that prepped, and we've done some plantings in there. And then more stuff up here in the kitchen view garden. But it's early October and lots is changing. The plantings are going into their fall foliage and dying back a little bit. So the garden looks a bit different than the last time you saw it. Now, again, we're beginning of October. We haven't had really appreciable rain for months. What is it? 2 weeks ago, maybe, we had, a week and a half ago, we did have one significant rain. It was like a day and a half of rain. It was wonderful, but we are still in a severe drought here in this region in central New Hampshire, and so the garden is suffering. Unfortunately here I cannot do a lot of supplemental watering. I've been focusing my watering this year on all of the new shrubs that I put in, the new trees and shrubs, trying to make sure that they have enough water to get established and get through this dry period. The rest of the plantings that are already established have pretty much had to fend for themselves. We're on a well here, and so we have to be careful. It's our drinking water, it's our house water, and it's also the garden irrigation water. And I know that there are limits to the capacity. I've exceeded them many times when I was a market garden grower in the vegetable garden in front of me here. So I know that I'm limited in the amount of water I can pull out. That just means that some things suffer. And unfortunately, the shade garden has suffered probably the most because it is directly under this big maple tree. Let me show you what's going on there, and then I'll take you up the slope into the other gardens. So here in the shade garden, we have this really large maple tree, which we love. It's beautiful, but it does suck up a lot of water. So anything that's planted under it is going to be in competition with it for water. So this summer, being extremely dry, pretty much everything that's within its realm, its root zone, is really suffering for water. Let me just pull back here a little bit. Here's the edge of the shade garden. This is the Sun King Aurelia. This is the one that has done the best this summer. And if you look at previous videos, you'll see this thing was huge and bright yellow, just glorious. It did actually flower this year. Oh wait, here we go. Let me step in the bed here. It's what's left of the little blooms. They're not significant, but it's kind of nice to see. So this one seems to be very happy here, but it is first week of October, so it is starting to die back along with the hostas. Now hostas typically like a lot more moisture, so a lot of these are dying back sooner than one would expect them to this time of year. So even the ajuga, this is a tricolored ajuga, has suffered. It's perked up a little bit, but it's been flat, like dying flat. So it's suffered too. The lady's mantle looking a little rough. And the whole bed right now is starting to be covered with leaves. The maple is just shedding its leaves early. Again, I don't know if you can see it up here. Again, because of the drought, rather than changing color, they're just deciding, a lot of the trees are just deciding to drop its leaves, drop their leaves. So yeah, in here we've got some geraniums, perennial geraniums, variegated Solomon seal, which is just starting to die back a little bit, yellow up a little bit. Now I'm going to pan out here. Here's the maple trunk, and directly under it, this whole area really suffered this year. Again, because I couldn't do much in the way of supplemental watering. There was an Aurelia Sun King right there. That died back completely. There's a little bit of a variegated Solomon seal right there, as well as a, step in here. This is a Caringashoma, I don't know how do you pronounce it, palmata. It's yellow wax bells. It actually did put some flowers on, which is kind of nice, but it too is suffering here. The water situation right here is just, it's really bad. So I think I'm going to rework this section here for next year. I'm not really going to do anything with it now. It'll be a spring project, but I've got some pieces of old farm equipment that I actually want to use as sculpture, and I want to put that here and relocate the Solomon seal, the Sun King Aurelia, and the Caringashoma elsewhere where they might be a little bit happier, as well as move around some of these hostas and start to plant some things that are a little more dry shade tolerant. I do have an awful lot of foxglove seedlings. This whole area is foxglove seedlings, so next year there'll be a big crop of foxgloves. These were foxgloves that I picked up on the road coming into our farm, planted them, and they've just been happily self-seeding themselves all over since then. Alright, so we'll come back around, take a little bit of a wander through the rest of the shade garden. Even my Roseanne geranium is suffering a bit. I cut it back, and yeah, poor thing. Got some more hostas. The sweet woodruff has died back, started to die back. It usually dies back in the winter, but it's definitely crispier than it normally should be this time of year. I had a beautiful fern right here that also just died right back. It'll come back next year, but it's just saying, nope, no more of this drought. Thank you. These little tiarellas, they're so adorable. They're hanging in. These are new this year. Their blooms have gone by. I've been trying to make sure I water these because these are brand new this year. And they're hanging in. Now, as we swing over into this section of the shade garden, I noticed that this area seems to be a bit more damp, and the hostas have held together, even the ferns have held together, maidenhair fern here, a lot better than in other sections of the garden. I'm going to get into the sun here. Late afternoon sun. Some Hakanakloa grass here. I love this stuff. This one's doing pretty well. And these like more moisture, like hostas. So the fact that these are still doing okay just tells me that this corner seems to be a bit more moist. So I'm going to do a little bit of rearranging here, bring some of the hostas over here. My plan is to get rid of this plain green hosta, which I inherited with the property, and give it away, and bring some of the prettier variegated hostas that are over in the drier area in this space. Some more of the tricolored ajuga. Lady's mantle is doing really well in this section too. more hostas. Here's the Annabelle, which flopped over, a couple months ago after a storm that we had, a torrential downpour for about a minute. And it was enough to knock over the Annabelle. Part of this is going to go up to that corner next spring. I'm not going to dig it out now. I'm going to wait till the spring when this is dormant and dig out probably half of it and bring it up to the corner of the barn. But again, you can see how green a lot of this stuff is still, which tells me this area is a little more damp. Plenty of ferns. As we walk onto the patio behind the house here, this little planting has done pretty well despite the drought. There are a few things that struggled. This is the Boom Chocolata geranium. This one did okay. I need to cut it back, but it's still alive. It did pretty well, bloomed, and there's some new growth. I cut it back once. Some lady's mantle planted around this hydrangea. This is the everlasting green cloud hydrangea. And again, I've been watering this all the way through the summer because I wanted to make sure it didn't die. This is first year. This is a macrophylla hydrangea. And the blooms haven't really changed much in color. And I'm not sure if that's because of the drought. This one was always pink. When I first bought it, it had already changed to pink, but the rest have just stayed green, despite my diligence in watering. More lady's mantle. My little Princess Spirea. And then the Annabelle. This one again got hit by a storm, a couple months ago. We had a brief downpour and it just flopped it everywhere. So I had to stake it back up, and actually I've decided that this also is going to get dug out and brought up to the corner of the barn there. Have a spot all picked out for this. It can go crazy up there and it'll look great against the red of the barn. It's just too big for this space, and compared to the other plantings, it's just way out of scale. And also we want to be able to see the beautiful stone wall that's back here. So this one is on my list for early spring moving, and we'll find something else to fill this space. Coreopsis that I transplanted here is, dying back. Again, it's October. And then this is the other Boom Chocolata geranium that I think it died. Yeah. I'll dig around and double check, but we may be replacing that soon. As you can see, I left on the wall. I could see this from the kitchen, so that's why I left it here. I have a bag of drumstick allium bulbs to plant up here. This spring I had a bunch. I had planted a bunch last fall, and I had a bunch of these drumsticks sticking out right in this section, and I just adored them. So I'm going to plant more. I also collected seed from the drumstick alliums that bloomed this year, and I'm going to be sowing those as well. So lots of drumstick alliums. They make me happy, so I definitely want more of these. All right, turning away from the wall, and sorry, this is pointed into the sunshine. We're going to go up the stairs, and I've cleaned these up a bit, reset a few stones. We've got hens and chicks tucked in the crevices, as well as some sedums, and I don't remember the name of this, but it's all over the place. I've got a ton of it, and there's a red sedum as well, some more thyme. So I've been trying to stuff all the cracks with either hens and chicks or thyme or sedums, just to keep the dirt inside in between the stones. Have some more creeping thyme there. So the stairs go all the way up. Done some work here making sure that these are stable and they look nice. I'm actually going to go all the way up so that we're not looking into the sun. We did add this little path here alongside the barn, and there is actually a reason for this. As we walk up, here's the barn slope garden that was planted earlier this year. We'll walk up here. So future plantings, future plans, I should say, have this garden here kind of swooping out around my ginkgo and back into the pollinator garden there, which we're not going to pay any attention to. So expanding, taking out all this grass and making this part of the garden bed and having it sort of sweep into this garden bed. And so the pathway to get up through these two gardens up toward the barn is going to end roughly there. It will be moved a little bit when we get to the stage of taking out all this grass. But for now, we just have a wood chip path, and I'll put a rock border on the bed so that it delineates it from the path. Point out a couple of things here. First of all, I'll come back to this guy. First of all, can we just point out this sweet gum here? Look at how lovely that is. I'm gonna walk out. This is one of my bucket list trees. And this is a variety, a sweet gum called Cherokee, which is supposed to be a bit smaller than the species and not have as many, if any, of the fruits. When I bought it, I wasn't aware of that, so I actually bought a full species sweet gum, not a variety, just the straight sweet gum, liquid ambar, and planted it out way out in the pasture. I'll show you that in another video. That will have all the fruit. I love the little spiky balls that fall from these trees. But anyway, this is just such a gorgeous little tree, and it actually works out that this variety is what it is because it's closer to the house, and I don't necessarily want a 60-foot tree right next to the house. This will stay a bit smaller, and my husband won't have to worry about mowing all the little seed pods. I'm going to walk backwards here so that you don't have to look at the sun. And I'm going to swing around and look at my ginkgo. The ginkgo is starting to turn. It's not quite there yet, but some of these are yellow. The fun thing about the ginkgos is they turn a brilliant, brilliant yellow, and then one day you'll come out and all of the leaves are, boom, down around the base of the tree. It happens like in an instant, and it's always fun to just try to catch when that happens. So I'll definitely be watching this in the coming weeks. Okay, so this little thing here, step back so you can see it. This is a classic case of my eyes being bigger than my garden space. I was poking around at a local nursery and found all these cool things for sale, 50% off. Pull the tag here. So this is a vernal witch hazel. I've been looking for a witch hazel for a while, a nice big shrub. But once I picked this up, I realized I don't really have a space right now for it. So after some walking around with the big pot, I realized, well, this new garden bed that will eventually be right here is probably the perfect space for it because we can see it from the kitchen. And that is the whole point of having a witch hazel, is to be able to see it in the very, very early spring, late winter when it blooms. And it's just magnificent. So I think I'm going to put it here, which just basically means I'm going to excavate out a big ring, a big circle, and plant it, and then battle the grass until I can eventually get rid of all this grass and create a new bed. Maybe next year. We'll see. So yeah, definitely have to get that in the ground soon. All right, let's swing around and take a look at some things that have been happening here in this is what I call the kitchen view garden because we can see it from the kitchen. And this is the barn slope garden, which wraps all the way around the barn. You can see I've added more boxwood. This is green velvet boxwood. And I wanted to create somewhat of a little formal pathway into this garden. Even though my garden style is definitely not formal, I think it just, I don't know, I love the sense of order that a low boxwood hedge gives to something that is clearly not ordered or formal in any way. So I added a whole bunch more boxwood. And then I think since my last video, added these three lovely things. These are Beyond Midnight Caryopterises, or bluebeards, common name. And there are still a few blooms. When I bought them, I don't know if that's going to focus on it. Is it going to focus on? Come on, camera, focus. Anyway, this bush was entirely covered with blue blossoms, and the most beautifully intense violet blue. And the bumblebees absolutely swarmed over these. They bloom generally in like August, September, so this is a great late season source of nectar for bees, and they were more than happy to partake. Down here. All right, so in the kitchen view garden, some things here. Some coreopsis that I planted here grew from seed. I think I'm going to keep these here. I may spread them around a bit. They were pretty. They're bright yellow. There's a few blossoms there. The fire and ice hydrangeas are doing okay despite the drought. I've been trying to water them. Here's a patch of Paradiso Tall Mix echinaceas. They will be multiple colors, and this one was the only one that bloomed this year. The pink one, there are a few that have some heads, but I'm not sure they're going to make it. We'll see. We're probably going to get a frost pretty soon. So, but anyway, I'm going to keep these here, and actually I have a bunch more in the perennial holding row in the vegetable garden that will probably make their way up here, because they were a beautiful array of colors, whites and oranges, yellows, the pink, just really, really pretty, and I think that would complement this space. These are a little prairie coneflower. Let me see if I can find the tag. I put it in here somewhere. Hang on one moment. There it is. Yeah, it's just called yellow prairie coneflower. And they're cute. Cute little things. I just don't know that they're right for this space. I grew them from seed, and you know, it's always fun to grow new things from seed. But I'm not really like wowed by them. So I'm thinking they're going to move elsewhere, or they may just go to friends and neighbors. We'll see. These sweet coneflowers that I also grew from seed, again, lovely, pretty late blooms, beautiful. However, in this space, I'm going to go down here, they actually block the view of the sky pencil holly from the kitchen. And, you know, the sky pencil holly is an important part of the view from the kitchen to the barn. So these have got to go. I think I have a space for them, so I'm going to move them probably within, you know, the next week. But, yeah, they have to go. They are pretty, though, aren't they? Really nice late season flower. I have not seen bees on them, though, so I'm hoping maybe they have some value with the seeds for birds. Let's see, what else is new here? I'm going to back up. Let me back up all the way. almost to the end here. Pardon the sunlight. So this spirea, hang on, I have a name for it. So this spirea is a double play artisan spirea, and it's pretty. The bees love it when it's in bloom. The one thing I noticed, though, I was actually pretty surprised, is it seems to have tossed out some seedlings. Got a couple there and a couple there. So I'm going to dig these up and put them in the vegetable garden in the row that I use for my perennial holding area, and see if I can get these to grow. It would be great if I got some free shrubs. I've got a couple of Weigela. How do we pronounce that? Put some comments in down below, because I can never remember how to pronounce it. Anyway, these are, this is a My Monet Weigela, dwarf Weigela, and this is Midnight Sun, and it's really starting, the foliage is really starting to redden up as we get into fall. It's really, really pretty. Oh, and I can see my dog has been in here. Ah, Susie. Here's the black hat rhododendron, and its claim to fame is that as the temperatures get colder, the foliage starts to turn black. And it is starting to turn a bit. So that'll be fun to see as we start getting frosts, as it starts getting colder. All right, so let's go back up here to the path. Not much has changed here since I planted it late summer, early summer, sorry. But down toward the boxwoods here, I do have a few interesting things. I moved a peony here that I got from a friend in town. I believe it is a Festiva maxima, which is big white heads with just little flecks of like cranberry red. That's what it looked like to me. She didn't know the variety, but I managed to score a little piece of it a couple years ago, and it was in the pollinator border to the right of me. And so I moved it. Fall is the time to move peonies. So here it is. Cut it back and stuffed it in there. And then I went to the vegetable garden and the perennial holding row and dug out all of the Becker's peonies that were sitting in a row in the garden, and clumped them together, planted them somewhat in a row but random, if that makes any sense. So they look like they've sort of naturalized here. These will also be white, much smaller blooms, and they have a little bit of a pinkish cast to them in the middle. Really pretty, but I love them because of the story, and I know I've told this multiple times, but my husband and I rescued these from a farmhouse in our former home town in upstate New York, and the farmhouse was going to be demolished, and so we rescued these. And yeah, so nice little remembrance of our time in upstate New York. I did add this little arborvitae. I saw it and I had to have it. Its name is Fire Chief. And any of those people out there that know me know my husband is a former fire chief. So of course I had to get it. This will grow maybe 3 to 4 feet tall and wide in a kind of a mound. So I think it'll work well with this elf. What is the name of this? I will put it on the bottom of the screen. Not a rhododendron. Nope. Yep. Anyway, and this whipcord shrub as well. They all form sort of a low mounding form, so I think these will all work well together. All right, our bush honeysuckle is still looking pretty nice. I've been watering this guy very well, as well as the, I believe this is the Twist and Shout hydrangea. That has been getting a lot of water this year because it's been so dry. And if you know anything about hydrangeas, is they love water. So yeah, we've got to make sure we water those well. So this area here, you can see the propane tanks down below. I have some work to do because I'd like to block the view of that from this position as we walk along. So I'm going to actually put one of the Sun King Aralias right there, where that plant is, who I cannot remember right now. And again, I'll put that on the screen below. I planted that there this year and immediately decided I didn't like it there, but I hadn't decided where to put it. So that again will be another, I may get it moved this year, if not first thing in the spring. But that will probably come up here where I think it will be better viewed. It's kind of lost down there. But if I put a Sun King Aralia up here where it is a bit more moist, it'll grow big and bright yellow, which will be fun to see from the kitchen, and it will help cover the view of those tanks from up here. All right, so looking back at the front of the barn here, this faces south. I've pretty much planted, step up here, pretty much planted all of the orange daylilies that I'm going to plant. I think I have 3 or 4 more that I'm going to stuff in here. But this will form basically an impervious mat of daylilies in a couple of years. You will not be able to get through here, which is great. Again, I planted these here because in the winter, the snow that builds up on the barn, because we have a metal roof, slides off all in one torrent and lands on whatever's underneath it. And if it's anything that is delicate, branched, that could, sustain damage, it's going to get destroyed. And daylilies won't care. They die to the ground and come back up no matter what you do to them. So I think that was a good choice there. I've slowly been working on the edges here. I still have a lot of rock work to do to finish the edges of these beds because they're sloped. So that will happen once I'm done planting, because I'm on a limited clock with planting. Once that's done, then I can spend all my time doing rock work when the weather gets colder, before the ground freezes, and I've got plenty of time for that. So this space here, let me just back up a little bit. There's the hose. Right in here where the hose is, this corner is going to be the Annabelle hydrangeas that are going to get relocated from down below. I'm going to fill this space with the Annabelles. They'll be visible from the house, contrast really nicely with the red barn, and help hold the slope together. I'm also going to do a little terracing in here, and then down below along the edge of the rocks and the path, I'll fill it in with some other things that I haven't figured out yet what they're going to be. All right, so I've done some more planting along this front slope just recently. I took some cuttings from this carex here. This carex I planted 2 years ago, and it's just going gangbusters here. It really, really loves it. And I apologize, I cannot remember the name of it. I lost the tag, threw it away accidentally before I could remember what it was. But these are growing like crazy. And I thought, well, I'll just dig them up and split them. But then I noticed down here, you get little offshoots. And there were a ton of them. So I just dug those out and put them here. And these will grow really quickly. I will probably have to thin them in a couple of years. But for now, these will help hold the slope in the winter. They're pretty evergreen. You cut them back in the spring. But yeah, I've got 20 or so of these that I've planted in a couple of different spaces with little effort. It's great. Just swing back over here. Behind the carex, I actually have a planting of anemones. This is robustissima. And unfortunately, I haven't been up here. I wasn't up here while they were blooming. You can see the empty stems, which are kind of pretty on their own. But here are the flowers. Just gorgeous. So these seem to be happy here, even despite the drought. All right, back to new plantings here. All right, so I did some variegated ajuga. A while back, I planted this darker ajuga, as well as transplanted this leucothe, coast leucothe, which is still struggling. So it's evergreen, but next spring I'm gonna see if there's something that I'm missing. It's not looking as fantastic as it looked when I first bought it. So more work there. Some more ajuga, some more carex seedlings up here to try to slow down the flow of water from the slope. And then I dug up some lady's mantle seedlings. These came from plants that I already had, a whole pile of them. So put them along the edge here. They'll fill out in a year or two. And I love lady's mantle. They're just a good workhorse shade plant. You can, part shade into sun even. You can stick them anywhere, and they just add so much interest to the garden. All right, then I added some shrubs here. I'm going to step back so you can see. So I did 3 small azaleas, and then in between 2 hydrangeas. Let me get up close here. Oops. So azaleas actually are a bit of a risk here. These say that they're hardy to zone 5, and we are zone 5B, but I believe we're in a frost pocket here, where the farm sits, and I don't know if you can see it here. There's a hill behind us, and then you have the house and the land in front of the house, and then there's a hill. That pasture drops off quite a bit down to a lower pasture. So we're kind of in the middle of a hill, and I can feel the cold air coming down this hill when it's really cold. And I know I've lost plants that should have been hardy here, so I'm taking a risk with these azaleas. These are white azaleas, a variety called Dorothy Hayden, and they'll be really cute up against, especially against the red barn. I hope they survive. And then this is, I planted 2 tiny tough stuff hydrangeas. Very excited about these. These are adorable. These are reblooming mountain hydrangeas. So unlike the hydrangea over there, whose name I'm forgetting. Yeah. I'll think of it in a minute. It's been a long day. Unlike that other hydrangea, which can be touched by a late frost or a really cold winter, this one will bloom regardless of how harsh the winters are, because it blooms on old and new wood. So very excited to try these. So I just tried to alternate the azaleas with the hydrangeas. I pushed the hydrangeas back a little bit up the hill from the azaleas, so they're not all in a row. Tried to give some movement to the border here. And then I added some liriope, and this is a variety called Big Blue. I bought 6 containers, gallon containers of this liriope. Again, another plant that I have trouble pronouncing. And I was able to split them up either into thirds or into quarters. So I ended up with like almost 20 plants, I think, out of the six, yeah, at least 20 plants out of the 6 containers. So just a reminder that just because you buy a 1-gallon plant, one plant pot, doesn't mean you necessarily only have one plant. Take a look at some of these plants. You can divide them up right away and put them in the garden and save yourself a whole lot of money. So I did sort of a sweeping swath of Liriope here. Not a straight line. Tried to, mix it up a little bit. But again, something somewhat evergreen to hold the slope a little bit. There's the second tiny tough stuff, and the third azalea. And then we get into the newer part of this garden bed, which I planted some of these things earlier that I've shown you. Some more Liriope. This is a blue muffin viburnum that I believe I've shown you before. It did have some blueberries when I bought it, but the deer got in here and ate those. I have 3 limelight primes up here. I'll climb up the slope. And these are just lovely. They're turning just the most beautiful shade of pink. Just gorgeous. But yet we still have new blooms that are coming. And I think mainly because the deer nipped this branch. But yeah, bright white blooms that then fade to a really beautiful dark pink. And this one actually the deer chomped on quite a bit, so as you can see, no blooms there. It'll be fine next year. So whipping back around here, we'll go back down the slope. Just a quick comment about rocks in New Hampshire. Yeah, all of these came out of like this little area here, planting these various things. So many rocks. Anyway, added a couple of geranium macrorrhizum. This is Ingwerson's variety. Little pink flowers. But in the fall, they also have really pretty foliage. So it's starting to color up here. Love it. There's the Coosa dogwood that I planted this spring. Doing really well. I've been watering these guys, this whole group here, consistently all summer so that they could survive the drought, and they seem to be doing just fine. So I'm very happy about that. Same with the viburnum. So this section here, this whole below the dogwood, this is what I've been working on most recently, getting the grass out, thick layer of cardboard, bunch of compost, topsoil, all in here, as well as extending the chip path, which will be lined on the right side with rocks and on the left side with some sort of plastic barrier to keep the blueberry patch grass from coming into the path. And now I get to plant, although I'm not going to do a whole lot more planting this year, but I found some things and I just wanted to get them in. So here we are. Try not to get my shadow in the camera here. So more Liriope. Again, I think this was 2 plants? 2 or 3 plants? Yeah, 3 plants actually. 3-gallon pots that I broke up into 9 plants to kind of fill in this corner here as it goes up. That's the driveway to the barn. And yeah, and then driveway down. So just fill in this corner here. And behind it, I have this lovely little plant. Let me show you. This is, did I take the tag off? I may have taken the tag off. Oh. So yeah, I took the tag off. So this is a beautyberry, a calicarpa called Snow Star. And it's looking a bit yellow because it's, October. This I found at a local nursery, 50% off. So happy about it. Had to have it, of course. The catch with this one is that the little berries, instead of being lavender, purple colored, they're white. So it'll have green leaves during the regular growing season, but then it'll form little white berries. And I think there's some that are kind of left here, but bright white berries. So I cannot wait to see this come into fruit. That'll be really nice. And behind it, I threw in a couple of miscanthus. I wanted to add some grass to this section of the border. This is a variety called Adagio. It'll get maybe 3 feet tall or so. Really pretty. It'll have nice movement in the wind here. So I've got 2. And let me back up here. I don't know if you can hear that in the background, if the mic is picking it up, but somebody, a neighbor, is playing with their shotgun. And hunting season is here. Yeah, so about every 2 minutes you hear a shotgun blast go off in the background. Get out of the way here. So yeah, this bed is starting to shape up. I don't think I'll add anything more this season, mainly because I don't have anything more to plant. But I've at least got it made up, and the soil is good. And I've got a few things in here, and then next spring we can start planting this bed out in earnest. I do envision some perennials, some really pretty perennials, some coneflowers in particular. Perhaps that yellow coneflower I showed you in the kitchen view garden would be nice up here. Right along the driveway, it's probably going to be all perennials rather than shrubs because we get snow here, and we have to have somewhere to push the snow. So some of the snow gets pushed on here. A lot of it gets pushed this way, but I just don't want anything too precious along the edge of this drive that could get damaged by snow. All right, we're going to walk back toward the shade garden along the pathway. And I'm so looking forward to when all of this is just planted fully with all kinds of interesting things, walking through here and back toward the house. And someday this slope will also be garden. Not this year though. So let's go back to the shade garden. There's one other thing I wanted to show you that's new. And again, this poor garden has just suffered so much in the drought. I have a blank spot here where I had a whole pile of foxgloves that went by and I pulled them up. There's a couple of hillside black beauties here that got bit by the deer early on, and so only had a few flowers this year that recovered after the shaving by the deer. Anyway, so one of the things I'm going to add here, because it's dry shade, are these epimediums that I picked up recently. And this is Sandy Claus epimedium. It has these cool variegated edges which are spiky. These are really sharp actually. But they're really cool and interesting. And they like dry shade, which is exactly what we get here under the maple tree. So I'm hoping these spread eventually, and that I can take cuttings and move them around. I'm going to start with 3 right here and fill part of the space out. I think I may eventually take these hostas out and spread this more toward this little granite bench here, since the hostas are really not dry shade plants. They really struggle. So yeah, so that's the last thing I'm going to plant in this area in the next day or two, and hopefully fill some of the space in. And then next spring I will have to come up with something for this area here that will be next to the 3rd Sun King Aurelia. This one did okay this year. Not wonderful, not as big as its friend way down in the corner there, but better than the one that died completely. So it'll stay. All right, well, that is the tour of the shade garden, the kitchen view garden, and the barn slope garden, and all of the latest developments in those spaces. It's been a lot of work. Still a lot more work to do, especially next spring. There'll be a lot more planting in these spaces. But for now, I think they're in a good place. I have a tremendous amount of rock work to do before winter, which once our planting window closes, which it's coming up soon, we are, first week of October. We haven't had a hard frost yet, but it's coming. And, so the time to plant, when the ground starts to cool off, is quickly approaching. So I've been running around trying to get everything that I wanted to get into the ground, before I spend time doing things like rock work, which I can do, after everything is in the ground and it's cold, right up until really the ground freezes, which won't be until probably December, before it gets truly frozen. So yeah, running around like a maniac trying to plant things in the ground, and then I can breathe a little bit and spend some time getting these rock walls in place. Whew, yeah. Well, thank you for joining me today. I do appreciate that you're here, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care. Bye.